So we'll be getting into that in some.
You're going to explain it by heat, and that we are seeing. So everything is being miraged and loomed up.
Super looming. Basically, it's super looming.
Oh, so it's super. So we just live in a super looming area.
It's called super convenient super looming.
Well, I must admit, if you're saying it's happening regularly, because I'm not quite sure. You said you've happened several times.
Every day I've seen those buildings every single day. When obviously, unless it's been
unless it's been bad, okay.
Rumpus, you have to admit it looks flat, right? It fucking looks flat. Now it might be a globe, it might be a spinning ball Earth, but it looks fucking flat, right?
That's right. The conditions that Ranty is in with these warm air over a cold sea does indeed give the impression.
Fucking lunatic, Ranty.
But you will find, Ranty, you try this again in the autumn and you'll find it will not work.
I wasn't sure if it was Rumpus on camera then. Or was it nipple?
You do realise I've been seeing these buildings for the past 2 years. I've just not bothered filming.
Yeah. But when you go this autumn, when the weather turns, you try it again, and you will not get the effects you're now having.
Yeah, but Rumpus, they also talk to me about.
How much do you want to down to the beach?
Well, I would only make a bet if there's some means of doing it.
Okay, so I would say that. So let's say that from October through to February, when it's really cold, right? As long as I go and get one observation every 2 weeks, right? One every 2 weeks. That's at least as good as what I've actually been showing. So if I get one every 2 weeks consistently through the months of October through to February, then I will win the bet. And if I don't actually come up with the goods, then you will win the bet.
Okay, well, I mean, in principle, that's sort of semi-agreeable to me. I would want to, obviously, haven't checked, because I have been concentrating on doing this hangout on Anthony's observations. I haven't fully checked what you're doing, where you are, to make absolutely sure the details, because you get things so wrong all the time. Okay. I would have to check. I would have to check very carefully where you are, what you're looking at. But yes, it does look as though, I mean, from what you've shown so far, you do look as though you've got most of it right.
That bet, Ranty. I'm on your side. I'll take that bet.
But obviously, I'd like to research this a bit more on where you're looking, what the typical temperature conditions are for that area, whether there is something odd about them, and then get back to you. But in principle, I would be prepared to consider that. Yes, as a. But no, I'm not going
to. And rather than making it a ridiculous amount of money, let's say £100.
No, don't put money on it.
No, I don't want. I don't want to take money off you, Ranty.
Ranty.
Ranty, it's not fair on me. It's not fair on me to pick on someone of your intellectual level. So I don't want to do that.
You always reach for the stars, don't you, Robert?
You should bet a video retracting.
I could do something, but let's not make it sort of painful.
You should be on your knees.
Make a video conceding the other point. Yeah, you should make a video. I bet a video. You know.
I will be. Remember when we destroyed you, Rumpus, with the Miramar Beach footage?
I do remember the Miramar Beach, and this is a very similar. Yes, and if you recall, in the same situation, there was a cold current coming up the west coast of the USA, and that's very similar. That's exactly the situation where you get super looming, where you get cold.
But to all the world, it seems like we're looking at direct reality, right?
Well, so like are you denying refraction?
You're saying it's mirage. Where are you going to go?
Hold on, Pete. Are you denying the existence of refraction?
Conveniently bring everything up to view.
You're not denying it. Great. So therefore, what we see is reality, but it's with refraction.
That's your interpretation.
No, we've got measurements. We've done experiments, and I will be citing in the Hangout experiments to demonstrate this.
So is it going to be refraction? Now, let me just get this right. Refraction that shows a consistent building or series of buildings being loomed up and held in position for hours. Not just a little flicker of light. I'm talking about entire buildings holding their relative positions.
Yeah, it's. I will be going into the details of this.
That would be light that's being loomed up. Not a little flicker like Soundly, where he's got his lights on Lake Pontchartrain or whatever, and they're just flicking up and down. That's just showing that light goes up and down. It doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that you can get an entire building or series of buildings to be loomed up and hold their sizes and shapes and positions for hours.
Yeah, this is the impasse we're at, Ranty. If we can't agree on how our eyes work, if we can't agree on what we're seeing, if I'm saying I see black and you say I'm seeing white, we're not going any further, right? Simple as that. That's why Rumpus doesn't show his face. He's been continuing on for all of these years now in the same manner, in the same vein. So
you are denying refraction then, Pete?
no, absolutely not,
Right,
man.
great. So if you're not denying refraction,
not how you apply.
I'll deny refraction the way you tell us.
Not how you apply.
I'll deny refraction.
Don't say things like we're saying we're not denying the refraction does not change.
Not how you apply.
I'll deny refraction. I'll deny refraction.
Well, okay, but in which case, Anthony, you'll be very interested in what Philip and I will be showing in the next day or so, and going to very considerable detail.
But the bending of light to all beyond all parameters in science, right?
Yeah.
No, but within the parameters of science.
Really?
Exactly.
To know what science you're going to bend this light to.
Rumpus believes that you could see around the whole world and see your own ass.
Well, actually, it's very amusing. Ranty, it's very amusing you just mentioned that, because I will be mentioning that in some detail about Anthony's bottom in the Hangout.
Bottom, his bottom.
Yes. His bottom will get a mention in the Hangouts with regard to what you've just said.
Rumpus, are you not embarrassed in your position right now?
No,
I used to be embarrassed. We can't see. He keeps getting red, Anthony. He's not facing me.
You do not believe how rock solid my evidence and knowledge is on this subject. I really don't appreciate that.
Show your fucking face. Show your name, and then we'll be.
As a process.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you're new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. But most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by The Plain Truth, Sleeping Warrior, Ranty Flat Earth, The Rumpus, Pete Shea, No Globe, Jose, Earth Flattener, and Arwin. How the devil are you all?
Any scientific proof of dust on the shelf?
Can I just say that Pete Shea's joined in the background, and when he joined, he got his nipple out on camera, and I wasn't quite sure if it was Pete Shea's nipple or was it Rumpus.
Right, okay, that's lovely.
You got my good nipple as well, Anthony. I didn't show you my bad one.
Thanks for that, Pete.
I was just
one is an outie, right? What are you going to do?
I was just saying that I can account for all of Ranty's observations and Anthony's observations, and we'll be having a hangout about this shortly. I might even provide you with some teaser pictures in the next day or so.
Of your nipples, nice.
Anthony,
Cool.
I have a suggestion real quick. Maybe instead of saying there is no science on a flat Earth, rather we should say there's no scientific consensus on a flat Earth.
What I say is there's no science for a flat Earth.
I know. Well, yeah, but I think that somebody who might be naive would think that there's no scientific evidence for flat Earth at all.
There isn't any. There isn't any evidence for a flat Earth. None.
There is a defect like that, like someone being born with 6 fingers and stuff. I do believe there is a statistic that could be made for it, but I think the majority and the biggest problem that's plaguing us is sexual predators, because that's obviously a very real thing. 1 in 4 girls are molested or some, and so it's probably more like 1 in 2. So I think that.
Oh. Okay.
What was that about? Sexual predators. Maybe that's why Rumpus goes faceless. He fears flat Earth sexual predators or something.
Well done, Pete. You're an idiot.
Yeah,
But
can't
anyway,
wait to see that hangout you were going to do.
Well, it's going to happen the next day or two, Alwyn.
was it 3 months ago?
It was about 2 months ago, I think.
All right.
But if you remember, Arwyn, I predicted before I saw the video that Anthony would see compression, and that's exactly what he saw. And
so, what's the reason for that prediction?
That will be explained in huge detail, more than you can probably cope with in the hangout in the next day or so.
Really
cool. Can't wait.
Give us the name of the
Wait
effect.
to see
And
it
there will be lots of pretty
Can't
Just give us the name of the effect.
next
and
year,
there will be
Rumpus.
lots of pretty pictures. that
Rumpus,
you'll be
just
able
give us the
to-
name of the effect.
We heard that before, though, didn't we?
I'll probably come in tomorrow and tell you.
We've heard all this
Probably.
before. We thought there was one pre-recorded.
Probably somewhere next
So just for the benefit of the audience, Rumpus, what's the standard of proof here? Is the standard of proof explaining it, or is it proving that it's true?
Yeah.
Well, you can't prove anything's true except in maths. So
No, it's the opposite way around. You can absolutely prove things are true. There's a methodology for doing it. It's called the scientific method. If we didn't have the scientific method, we wouldn't have proof of things. Scientific evidence furnishes proof. Maths does nothing. Maths is just a way of describing things.
Okay, Rumpus, please. This is what I've been after you doing for such a long time. In fact, any ball earther doing for such a long time. Nathan, if you could present my screen, please.
Sure.
This observation was from 18 miles and at a elevation of 1 foot, right?
I bet you've got that wrong, but anyway, never mind.
It was an elevation of 1 foot. I also have a video showing my location. Crouching down, you can see comparisons that I haven't moved. It was a 1 foot observation. It's never been questioned before. I want you to analyze this 1 foot observation, including the refraction layer that is clearly evident right here where my cursor is now. I want you to talk about this.
I can't see your cursor, I'm afraid, Ranty.
All right, okay. Well, next to the towers, there's a building. It appears that there's 4 windows on the building. That's underneath that.
Sorry, I should be looking. Sorry, didn't click on it. Sorry, Ranty, I was looking at the other video. Sorry, I'm now looking at your video feed. Sorry.
Well, this building only has 2 windows.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly, there are 4.
And there's a fold line there between the two. Yeah.
Fold line across this part here.
Yeah.
What I've essentially done is gone beneath the refraction zone.
Yeah.
These we're seeing shore to shore. This is a sand dune that's in front of this building. Obviously, all the way over here, we've got the clock tower that's clearly been. There's a fold line in the middle of it there, making it stretch up. But all the buildings at the bottom are all in proportion, exactly how you'd expect to see it, including a rock that's by the shoreline. So I would like you to analyze this image or this series of images, please. Right. Because also on the left-hand side, we also have the land that's down here. Okay. So I would like you to show how this has worked on your hangout from 1 foot distance, 18 miles.
Okay, I might have a chance to look at that, but I can show you basically what's going on if I just share a screen.
Okay. Bearing in mind, well, before we go any further, though, all these buildings should be gone. That's the thing. Nothing should be seen of these buildings. So before you even attempt to try and talk about this, I don't want to make you be embarrassed yourself, but all of these buildings should be gone. 1 foot observation, 18 miles, all gone. So away you go. Explain away.
Right. I haven't, as I said, I haven't checked this fully, but I believe what you're saying is the something close to the shore there. I haven't checked this for certain, so I'd have to do that before I was emphatic about anything.
Nathan, before everybody,
tell us what you see. All you know,
Nathan. Sorry, Pete. Can I say something? Nathan, did
you
you
stop
hear?
Interrupting, can you, Owen?
Nathan, did you hear what Rumpus just said? Just wondering, because normally you'd be all over him for something like this.
My attention was on something else temporarily, Owen. So no, maybe you'd like to repeat it.
Okay. Well, he said that basically nothing can be proven except with math.
Yeah, I did address that. I did address that.
Right.
So yeah, that's not true. So we have a method called the scientific method, and the scientific method sets out to establish cause and effect relationships. So to assert that you can't prove anything is akin to saying we're a brain in a jar.
Exactly.
Correct.
Well,
it's a philosophical argument, whereas we are actually out proving things. So if you want to provide us with some scientific evidence, for example, in the short break between the shows, you were talking about refraction and calling people refraction deniers. So I'd like to establish with you just at this stage, Rumpus, is the type of refraction that you were detailing terrestrial refraction by any chance?
Yes.
Excellent. So that would require proof of the R value in 76R, would it not?
Well, we have proof of that, so that's not a problem.
Sorry, you didn't
That's
seem
the
to
body-
repeat what I said. I said scientific evidence proves things. Evidence furnishes proof. And scientific evidence is something you can validate. Yeah? Mathematics is just a way of describing things. It doesn't prove anything.
Right.
Oh.
Science doesn't prove anything because we.
Yes, it does. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Nobody would ever bother performing anything scientific if it didn't prove things. So that is absolute nonsense. I will say it again. Evidence furnishes proof. Okay? Scientific evidence is the standard that we would require if you are to assert that
What about
7.6...
letting me finish my sentence for once?
No, I'm talking. Just you shut up while I talk. So if you're to assert that we have a radius value, 76R, of which is going to be applied to a refraction that you claim, terrestrial refraction, then you must first scientifically validate the value of R. That's necessary. And without it, you don't have any reason to assert that value in that mathematical equation for terrestrial refraction. So when Ranty asks you to go through details on this picture on screen now, he's showing that there is refraction, but it's not at the horizon. It's not curving anything around anything. It's just refracting the image up upon itself. So ultimately speaking, that's what you've got. You've got a level of terrestrial refraction, and you don't have any cause to actually apply terrestrial refraction. None whatsoever. So it's back to this. If you've got proof of R, yeah, you can assert it here. The standard of that proof would be scientific evidence. So if you don't have scientific evidence of R, I'm not interested in terrestrial refraction, I'm afraid. That's just the way it's going to have to be. So yeah. Is Rumpus continually talking in the Hangout? I don't doubt that's going to be the case, right? Can we get some quiet in the Hangout? Hello? No.
Sentence, and I got overtalked. Right,
Yeah,
as
you're
I was
just talking
explaining,
continually in the Hangout.
Right,
You do
there
this,
you go
Rumpus.
again. You've done
Rumpus,
it again.
Yeah,
I have to
there
mute you
you
because
go
otherwise
again.
no one in the
I've
Hangout
only
can
been-
hear.
I've only been-
All
said.
Rumpus does
You
is talk
ignored him
continually in the
once again.
Hangout so that
I've
nobody
only
can
had
hear what's
5
being
seconds
said.
of a sentence.
Stop
I've
talking.
only had 5
So all
of a
Rumpus does is
sentence.
he will
I've
talk
only
continually so
5
nobody can
seconds of
hear
a
what I say
sentence.
when I talk. This is a little
He
trick
had
that these
5
ballers have
seconds of a
decided to adopt. If
I've
I'm
only
making a
had
point,
5
Rumpus will do what he's
seconds.
doing now. So I'm
I've
trying to make a
only
new
had
point that
5
Rumpus doesn't shut up, and he won't even
I've
let me
only
talk to
had
make that
5
point
seconds of a
either.
sentence.
This is
Come on,
Rumpus's
guys.
tactic
I've only
to
had
just
5
continually
seconds.
talk.
We can't
Because
hear
he
it.
thinks that then
I've only
nobody
had
can be
5
heard.
seconds of a
You know,
We
you're
honestly
being too
can't
I've
hear
only
it.
disruptive,
had 5
Rumpus.
seconds.
Rampage,
I've
yeah.
only
This is what he's
seconds
doing,
of a
just saying the same
sentence.
thing over and over and
Only
over again
had
in the
5
background, so no one will hear what's being said
I've
by any
only
other
had-
participant except
of a
Rumpus.
Nathan, you're not coming through properly, Nathan. by the
I've
way.
only
I
had
think
of a
Rumpus's record
sentence.
is more broken than
I've
usual.
only had 5 seconds of a. I've only had 5.
See, he's just
So
saying
if I
the
just
same
finish-
thing over and over again, and while someone's talking,
Finish
it
my
means that the only person being heard in the Hangout is
If
Rumpus.
I could just finish.
No,
Nice.
we're not. We're saying
All
you
right.
can't. That's why I, as the host, am muting you,
Can I
Rumpus,
just
but
finish
you
it?
won't stop
Can I
talking
finish it?
continually. That's just your game that you play because you're losing. This is a
Can I
tactic
finish
that
a
people
single
who are losing an
sentence?
argument will employ.
Can I finish a
Oh
single
my
sentence?
Pathetic.
God, you won't
Talking
stop.
non-stop.
Just let him,
To be able to
let him make
finish one
let him talk.
sentence.
He's got mental
Of a
issues.
sentence.
Yeah, it seems that
I
way.
was in the
Let
middle
him
of a
talk.
sentence.
He's not gonna stop.
I was
Yes.
in the middle of a sentence. I wanted to finish it. Is that really so bad? I wanted to
Yeah.
finish a sentence.
Yeah, let him finish.
Oh,
He's not
right.
gonna stop.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to finish one sentence.
Yeah,
Right.
but you
all I
don't
was.
need to talk for 5 minutes saying the same thing 400 times so nobody else who talks can be heard. I just want to say one sentence. 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 I just want to say one
with
sentence.
what I've got to say. You're frightened of what I've got to say because
No,
you
we've
don't like
also
reality.
got
Okay, let's hear-
air
let-
to
let's-
fill.
How would you ever know?
You're
You
not
don't
the only
listen
person
to
who can
anyone.
talk.
I
ever.
was in the middle of a sentence, are we?
See? I was in the middle of a sentence. I was in the middle of a sentence. He'll just say that 400 times when anybody else
Sentence.
is talking.
No, apparently not. All I want to do is to finish my sentences.
See? He's just going to say that continually. This is their tactic now. They don't have any winning arguments. No one's come and apply perspective to their perspective omitting proof of nothing, begging the question curve calculator. They're just going to come and say, I want to finish my sentence 400 times. That's his tactic now.
How about that as an idea?
Because
Then we could
maybe,
but we could take
maybe
turns.
when-
He doesn't let me take turns, does he? He does not let me finish.
To proving the shape of the Earth with this.
Right, so all I was trying to say was that in science we do not prove things because we don't know. We're not brains in a vat.
Yes, we do. So science is setting out the sole purpose of science is to prove things. You establish a cause and effect relationship and then validate it scientifically through experimentation, repeated experimentation. That is the method of science. If it didn't prove anything, nobody would ever bother doing anything. Evidence furnishes proof, and scientific evidence is the standard that I require for an assertion of a radius. If we're in a debate about a radius, because if you already have a radius value, then that is your proof of globe Earth. There's no need to do anything with that radius value that you presuppose.
You asked Franti. Sorry, why don't you ask Nathan?
Just letting the audience know what Rumpus is doing now that I'm talking. So he's made an assertion that science doesn't prove anything. I'm saying it does, or you wouldn't bother doing anything. And this is what he's doing in the Hangout, so nobody in the Hangout can hear me.
That black is white, right?
No, I didn't. No, I never do that. We are very fixed in what we think is right and wrong in science. Well, what we can prove, we don't call it a proof. We give it the preponderance of evidence says that this is the case.
No, scientific experimentation.
Yeah, scientific experimentation can tell you what is true. But for instance, we don't.
Right, what is true? So it proves things, proves it as true, right? Evidence furnishes proof. And in this instance, I'm saying if you're to assert terrestrial refraction, you need scientific evidence of the R value you put into that equation. Now, you don't have to give it me. You can just assert that you can use the radius value and presuppose you're on a sphere. I just say no. And your only tactic to get around this is to stop the people in the Hangout hearing it while I talk the audience by continually talking over me while I talk. That's your only game plan. That's all you've got. So just for the audience's benefit, I'll unmute Rumpus so you can see exactly what he's doing presently.
You asked me not to interrupt me. And then we could take turns. Why don't we just take turns? I'm only asking to take turns.
See, so he's saying, why can't we take turns 400 times in the Hangout whenever any points are being made? Because he doesn't have any arguments. He's not here to apply perspective to your begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective omitting curve calculator. He's here to obfuscate and talk continually in the Hangout and just cause a disruption. It's a pathetic tactic because he's got nothing else to offer.
I think you shouldn't let him on here until he shows.
Oh, my head.
Right? When you know you're dealing with a liar, how long are you going to continue dealing with a liar before you come and realize, you know, there's nothing more to be garnered or gained from that? That's my position.
You know what, Rumpus? Just do your Hangout tomorrow in a year.
He's dropped.
You know, like every time.
Dropped.
And then
finally, when
you'll still hear me.
He was talking to no one. Rumpus is gone, Armin.
Thank God.
Rumpus, where are you?
I don't want him here. I haven't kicked him, but I don't want him.
I didn't do it this time. I really, really wanted to.
Hey, Apollo, how you doing?
Nice to hear.
Oh, it's a lovely silence. Can actually hear what other people are saying now.
That's nice.
But it is true. It's like it's a good analogy. We all see black. Rumpus sees white because the mathematics says that we can see white, and therefore we're to believe the mathematics over our own sort of sense.
Exactly.
Where are you going to go from there? That's
I have a question. My question is the same atmospheric condition responsible for not only the squashing but also the superlooming? So we get a 2-for-1. Is it the same condition that does both, or is it separate?
Terrestrial refraction is light bending at a rate of 7/6 the radius of Earth. That is terrestrial refraction. It doesn't account for anything. When you incorporate it into a model like Philip did, he cannot account for the fold line and its inferior mirage. He cannot model that because he's just bending light around the Earth at 7/6 of the radius, not actually accounting for any of the actual mirage effects we see. No, just bending light around a curve we don't see so that it makes it seem more flat than it really is. That's all they're doing.
So am I hearing you say that he's got simply an equation that represents what he thinks happens?
Yes, he flattens out the Earth a bit with his equation of 7/6R.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially.
Rumpus lives in his brain in a jar, and it calculates how the world is supposed to be like a globe.
Well, he's the
what
guy
he's
that
doing.
says that you can see your own arse in a telescope if you had the right weather conditions and you had a big enough zoom on the camera.
Well, right up at the point that we need to actually acquire some scientific evidence of something, that is the point that Rumpus says science doesn't prove anything. So when it's, in his opinion, in his favour, the whole body of science supports him. When we assert there's no scientific evidence of the R value, then science doesn't prove anything.
What's interesting with this image, am I displaying, Nath? And this is why I wanted him to address this particular image, this 1 foot observation, was the clear fold line in the buildings, which is above where we would normally see the fold line, which would be at the bottom. You can take the mountains in the background as a guide as to whether or not there's any split in the mountain. So there is no split in the mountain, but there is a fold line here. So that's proving that it's all happening here. It's not being loomed up and split. It can't be being loomed up and split because you'd have the mountain change would be different. There'd be a change in the mountain somewhere, which there isn't. So it can't be being loomed up and being mirrored, because that's what's happening. We are seeing a little bit of mirroring going on here, but the mirroring's going up. So it can't be being loomed and then mirrored. That's an impossibility. So it can't be having the two effects. So this is why I wanted him to address this.
Unless it's fractal looming, of course, but they first have to work out the formulas for that one.
The reason why I asked Rumpus was there a burden or a standard of proof that we should accept here is because if any explanation is just accepted, does that mean it's true? Or do we have to prove that the explanation that he gives is true? And for me, you have to prove that what you're saying is true, because even if refraction is a thing, you've still got to show that the refraction is bending around a curve, right? You can't just claim that it's refraction bending around a curve and then not show a curve, because the refraction is subject to the curve. So even if it is refraction, where's the curve?
Yeah, but there's the trick. You can't, because if it is bending around the curve, then how can you show this curve if it always appears flat? It's a mystical argument, basically.
That's why I asked Rumpus Arwen when Randy asked him just to analyze the picture, the capture he got. What does he see? Doesn't it look flat? He can admit that it looks flat, but he can't analyze it in that sense, in any sort of base sense. He has to presuppose this curve. He has to entertain an horizon that is a couple of miles off. So therefore, he has to describe or try to describe everything in those terms.
Imagine
the Earth is flat and stationary. Why do you think he goes faceless and returns year in, year out with the same infinite patience? We know there's something else going on, of course.
Right.
Oh, delicious silence.
What's happened to his? Did someone mute him?
What?
Who?
Oh, no,
Rumpus just dropped.
Pete.
Unless someone booted him. As far as I'm
No,
concerned, he just
no, I
dropped.
can see Pete. No, he's there. It's just his mic went off.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Rumpus.
No, he's still. I can hear him.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, right, there you go. Right, you're back. Right, got you.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever noticed that when Rumpus joins, it just becomes a shitfest immediately?
Yeah.
It becomes like a Tasmanian devil, but in terms of verbal, verbal communication becomes like the Tasmanian devil when he walks in, where he starts spinning around and the whole room gets ruptured upside down. That's the effect that Rumpus has when he joins.
That's ridiculous. It was really bad. It was on and on. He didn't stop. I couldn't hear nothing here in the hangout. Nothing.
He seems to be interested in just doing his say. He never listens to anything, and he complains that he is being interrupted while continually interrupting non-stop, making it completely impossible to hear what Nathan actually has to say from the panel here. So I was actually considering, while he was rambling, to just leave so I could go to the YouTube, unmute it, and actually listen to what Nathan was saying, because I couldn't hear a word of it.
There are like rooster fights in Puerto Rico, the cockfights. It sounded like a cockfight. There were just 10 people in the cockfight, but he was the loudest of them all. He was like, what? Don't stop. Like, yeah, kill him. Ridiculous.
Let me just say, Nathan is taking the same approach now that I have adopted for the longest of times, and you're dead right to do it with Rumpus. Of course, you're pulling him up at the very starting gate. In my own brain, anything to do with a spinning, careering ball is fantasy. So the more we sort of entertain the ideas and notions, the more we're delving into thought experiments. We know it's not a reality. catch him at the quick and cut him off, and that's all there is to it. Or has never been proven.
I wish there was a way to keep him muted somehow.
Let me tell you how I've reduced everything down, Arwen, and just in my own brief terms. If the Earth can be shown beneath our feet not to move, then the ball doesn't enter the equation based on the universal behavior of water at similar temperatures and pressures. And the Earth, of course, has been proven not to move. Therefore, anything to do with spinning ball is utter fantasy and will not lead you towards any truthful path, unless you view all of the science that is given us as clues in a sense. And that's what I think in actual fact that they are, Everything is inverted. So if we take the inverse of what's presented to us as truth, we can find many clues to help us along in our own path for truth. Ars Darkness.
Shout out to Joey Sill for the positive feedback there. Ranty, great work. Appreciate it. I definitely do.
Excellent, Ranty. This is worthy of lots of praise and lots of attention, as lots of the stuff and lots of the captures you've been getting are indeed. But we're in a different arena, and ultimately it's the individual search, right? We're all trying to advance upon our own understanding of our own being and the place we call home. So we mustn't forget that as well. But yeah, excellent. Focused work.
Yeah, Ranty, you are definitely bringing us a lot closer with all of your different footages that you shoot daily into understanding the circle of confusion, what you now call the compacted zone, what I call the confusion zone, or where things get distorted in all kinds of manners. And you are bringing so much optical evidence for us to study that it is helping us to progress a great deal. So thank you for that.
I've now written a little song about Ranty. It's called We All Love Ranty Flat Earth. Joining me, folks at home. No, I'm only joking.
I will join.
I got my guitar out. Far away, Nathan.
No, I was just joking. For the love of God, no.
If Nathan starts singing it, we'll...
No, that was just a joke. Why did I open my big mouth?
I'll strap on my guitar and take
No, it's okay. No swearing.
Don't do it.
I'll strap on my guitar.
But in seriousness, that jest was about getting people to subscribe to Ranty Flat Earth because he's undersubscribed. He has a massive channel. He gets shut down because of covering a few topics that YouTube doesn't like, and now he's not got a big channel. He's doing the same amount of work and just as good a YouTuber. So subscribe to Ranty Flat Earth. Just search for Ranty Flat Earth in the search tab, or just Ranty will find your channel, and just sub to him today. Subscribe today.
I think we also have to be aware, Ranty, when you're looking over 18 miles, 20 miles, that's a massive fucking distance. There's no hope of us resolving any of this in terms of our own natural eyesight. And of course, all instrumentation technology is based, in terms of cameras and telescopes, on human eyesight. So we can sort of separate ourselves somewhat from what we might be seeing. Because of course, if we zoomed right in, a different picture would present itself to us as well. But definitely groundbreaking stuff. And taking those images from what I actually think is happening when you take the images from so low, you're sort of bypassing, you're changing the acuteness of angle between you and this massive body of water. And water, of course, we know is reflective. It's the first thing we recognize as children. This is actually a big role in what's going on above as well. When we understand we're dealing with a reflective surface, it can help us sort of understand what might be going on. But what you're doing is you're changing the acuteness of angle, and you're sort of bypassing this reflected image. And I know there's more to it than that, but it's excellent.
Yeah, and there's other people looking into stuff with the actual the eye itself and how the lens works in the eye. So, who was it who did that, Nathan? Anthony,
it was Jimbo, was it? James Halliwell.
It was James and Paula. Both have covered that subject now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just—it's all. I mean, we're still learning this. We've got a lot of indoctrination to get out of our system, and we've got the globe has had a really hard head start on us, right? And we've been dragging our heels essentially, and it's only now that the momentum is gaining pace, and we're starting to pick apart the globe model, and that's what we're doing.
Some have been dragging their heels, Randy. I've been saying it for a long time. If you don't move in your own personal search beyond flat and stationary Earth, then you haven't progressed, because that was given to us on a plate. Myself, I have revealed Aristarchus as being the ultimate answer. Now come the questions, right? But my point is, outside of that, all of these things are there for us to glean as well, to progress in our own search, and we just need to follow the clues. Don't get stuck on any one particular area, as my advice in general to people. Realize that there is a greater picture here to be composed by ourselves, which is the truth. We've had the contrast now, the scientific Big Bang, everything from nothing. Now we can sort of step into our own true reality and truth.
I just want to make 3 separate points as well. This all started from Al Kay when he did his Elsa Craig observation, because he showed that Elsa Craig at 1,100 feet, but at 38 miles away. I looked at that mountain when he showed it, and I thought, we're seeing the whole thing there. Now, I'd never seen this before, and he was trying to debunk Dell from Beyond the Imaginary Curve. But I realized when I looked at that picture, based on my own observations, that was so far that it should be like a pinprick, like 1 pixel on the horizon. And we were seeing it. We were seeing all of it. Now, they were arguing about why couldn't we see the lighthouse that's only 70 feet on the coast, on the seashore. And ultimately, I was like, well, do you know what? You shouldn't really be expecting to see that. But when me and Ranty were looking into it, we realized that it was compressing at the bottom edge, the way that all of this work that we're talking about is compressing. So it spawned from Al Kay's observation that he claims is a ball Earth proof, but it's clearly a flat Earth proof, and it's probably the best flat Earth proof because it sparked this line of interest, because it did appear to be getting squashed, and that distance is nonsense. So it came from there. I noticed it then. I'm not the first one to notice this. I know that other flat earthers have noticed it, but what I did do was said to Nathan, look, we should beat the drum about this, because the effect of this is massive. And that's the effect hadn't been observed or noticed by the other flat earthers, even though the concept had been noticed. But Nathan thought about it for a while and thought, yeah, let's push it, see what happens. And over time, it's become obvious that these things destroys their arguments so badly that the Metabonk curve calculator is never going to compare with any photos again if they ever change it. And of course, they can't change it because they need to make that sphere look flat. So ultimately, really, we've got to the conclusion of the point, really, that the perspective is not being considered when the refracted hidden value is being applied. And it all spawned from Al Kay's observation of Elsa Craig. So big shout outs to Al Kay. You've proved the Earth's flat, mate. So thanks for that.
I do want to add just something to that, because we're on step 3 at the moment. I don't want to lose track of this, of a 4-step process in terms of getting this across to the audience in a concise way. So step 1 was proving that the calculator is omitting perspective, and there's a big fat check next to that box. We've done that and proved it. Mick West, thank you very much indeed for your time and your confessions of a globe Earth faker. Anyway, step 2 is to get people to concede that the actual effects of perspective on the target are real, i.e. objects in the distance do decrease in size to your perception when they get further away from you. So there's a big fat checkbox in that. Again, thanks to Sly Sparkane for actually visually demonstrating that exact effect. So then we move on to step 3, which is where we are currently, which is the bulge. There is a wall between you and the target, a big wall of Earth curve that's very close to you and would have a massive effect in terms of its angular size on anything that you're viewing, because it would be in the way of it and close to you. And this essentially is ignored. It doesn't appear in any of the pictures. So just to clarify, we're talking about in the heliocentric model, there is a wall of water/Earth between you and the target called the bulge. Now that would obscure your view based on it being in the near foreground and having a larger angular size. So that's step 3. And last but not least, when we finally do the coup de grace and explain how this works, once you've accounted for the fact that the calculator ignores perspective, objects do get smaller at distance, there is a wall blocking your view, and they drop to your observation position, you basically have a model that is completely flawed, totally fallacious, perspective omitting, begging the question, and proving nothing. And that would be the curve calculations based on the standard model of Earth.
And I think that even if they would get it correctly, the model with perspective and everything, there would probably be an outcome that, like, roughly after 20 miles, nobody would ever be able to see anything that isn't at least 5 miles high or something. Just nothing, ever.
It is very interesting because when you're looking in orthographic view, you got the horizon on your feet, and then you got if you're throwing just one line from your eyes to the target, let's say there's a building, so you see two lines parallel and they're never going to meet. But then when you see forward, let's say this is, I don't know, 10 miles away. If you are looking forward, this is the back of your head. And then the horizon is on your eyes. You don't see the horizon on your feet. I mean, you're standing on the horizon, but when orthographic, you're seeing two parallel lines. You're just looking at one line only. And then you are looking I mean, it's a very interesting, you got to wrap your mind around it. Orthographic, you see two lines where you're standing and your line of sight. When you're looking forward, first person, you just see that one line. So very interesting.
Straight ahead, by the way.
Yeah, you're describing the point of convergence. So, I mean, I said this to Ranty earlier this morning. We've got to stop calling this the horizon because you've got a vanishing point and it's relative to whatever you're looking at. So in the case of the wind turbines, the vanishing point is relative to the angular size based on how much of the turbine you can see. And obviously that varies with its height. The bottom part is going to be compressed to a lesser degree in the foreground and a more severe degree in the background where the things have reduced in angular size. So you've got these converging lines, two lines that come from, if you like, the top and the bottom corners. I'll just draw on this picture for the audience's benefit. But in terms of what you've got a very almost vertical line coming down on these sides. Obviously this is crude, but then in terms of your perspective along this angle, this is probably representing maybe 60 feet in elevation. It goes in at a very, very, very tight angle. You can probably see it on this road. The same thing applies. We've got almost infinite amounts of sky above us. That's probably the wrong word, but you've got a huge viewing angle going up, almost vertical, to the convergence point. Yeah, but you've got a very shallow angle of convergence on the bottom. So when you've got 1 foot above sea level, you've got almost horizontal lines coming in this way, which isn't accounted for. Obviously, they're not dealing in angles on the heliocentric calculations. And then almost a vertical line of convergence coming down from the top, where you've got a much, much wider viewing angle. So there we go.
Yeah, this is down a hill. It's not very...
Yes, this is down a hill, so it's not comparable to the 1 foot elevations because the viewing angle is expanding as this hill drops, obviously.
Yep. But yeah, at least in all views, in all observations, you have a field of view. As you stare towards the horizon, this field of view narrows down into a pretty much a dead straight ahead view. And there things only obstruct each other. And within this spot, because of all the air that is basically right in front of each other with other objects in between and obstructing it also, you have the circle of confusion, you have the miraging zone, and you have the compacting effect as well. All these effects all in this specific line just beyond the field of view where the slant basically starts. So you have all these effects that Ranty has demonstrated in his excellent videos.
Sorry to interrupt you, Owen. So I'm hoping that what's on screen now for the audience's benefit will serve as a decent representation of what we're saying when there's a wall between you and the target and there's an angular size reduction. So you can probably see the people carrier, and it's about to pass the car with the flashing lights. I don't know if it's what it's doing, but it's parked there. And we're looking downhill, akin to us looking down on a sphere towards the bottom edge of the curve. Now, as the car passes it, which it just has, it's going to start decreasing in angular size, i.e. getting smaller into the distance. Now, the car with the lights on, which is quite handy because you can see it nice and clearly, that would represent the bulge, a wall between you and the target. Now, in this instance, the wall's far away and can still have the same effect. So as this car goes past it, at that point, it's now reduced in angular size enough for the car to obscure it if it was directly behind the car in the near foreground, or the midground, with the lights on. But as it passes it, obviously, the wall obscures it from view completely. So the car's now gone because the car is a wall between you and the thing you're targeting, the people carrier that's just past it, that has reduced in angular size and is now obscured by something in the foreground. Now you multiply that effect by an exponential amount when you bring that obstruction to, I don't know, this is probably the distance between me and him is probably 1/8 of a mile. So, you know, you're only talking 10 times the distance, but something infinitely bigger, you know, 70-foot walls of water and earth curve. Yeah, you're looking down on their model, your gravity keeps you to the top of the ball, but it's the same effect as this. We're looking down a curve and we're watching something be obscured by something else which is higher on that curve, i.e. the car. That would represent the bulge as it goes past it. So ultimately speaking, this isn't to scale and isn't comparable, it's on a hill, but it kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. It doesn't matter that you look down on their ball in their fantasy world. You can absolutely still have a wall between you and something on the other side of that wall that is being obscured. If it wasn't, you wouldn't have a hidden value. Nothing would be hidden, right? Anyway.
Yeah. On a flat plane, like if the road is actually flat, not on a hill, things will go into the distance. They will stay at the same eye level, basically, and they will simply shrink due to perspective and them going into a distance. On a bulge or on a hill, they will change elevation. You will be turning your head as you try to follow the object because it's going over an actual curve. And that is the big difference. And when you look at objects into the distance, especially the far distance, you will always pretty much keep your head straight. You won't have to turn your camera up and down. You just keep it straight dead ahead and see it travel into the distance or coming towards you from the distance. Because there's no curve that you have to adapt your angle to.
Right, yeah, it's flat.
It makes you wonder, though, that we have to keep repeating this stuff and telling people in the most simple ways. I think they can't be that thick that you have to keep explaining it like this. So when they send the rumpus in, who's going to debunk all the video footage and all the evidence that I've captured over the last 2.5 months, what he's essentially said offline is that it must be adverse weather in this area, warm water over cold seas,
anomaly,
an anomaly, and it's all going to be explained through refraction. That's what he said offline. So
yeah, and then that's why I asked: is the explanation in itself considered proof, or is it proof that the explanation is is that the proof? Sorry, is that the standard? We need to prove that the explanation is the thing that we're seeing. Because you can't just say that this is explained and therefore it's true. You have to prove that the explanation is true. And unfortunately, refraction still relies and demands and necessitates a curve, a bulge, a wall. So even if refraction is the explanation, you've got to show that there's a wall or a curve that refraction is bending round.
Let me just say, Anthony, just as it occurred to me, we'll remember Mark Sargent and his flat Earth map of choice with the Orlando Ferguson map. And you look at it and you go, huh, this is as far as can be from a flat Earth. But because everything is inverted, we can picture the ground as being flat and planar, and therefore the contour is representing the sky above. This is what they've done. They've inverted the truth. So, yeah, we have to sort of consider these things anyway, I think. You know.
What about Jaren's video? Does anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. You got it to hand?
It's sensational. It is absolutely sensational. Anthony, could perhaps you display it?
The mountain one?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that is amazing.
Sorry, I was just responding to Scott Veach in chat. He's saying, Sleeping Warrior, stop acting like that. You can choose to stop, you know. Just decide to stop the insults and the silliness and decide to be willing to test your ideas. And I was just saying back to him, I'm not interested in talking to you. Where did I put it?
Yeah, the son of a beach.
Show the video again. Let's burn it on their retinas.
Yeah, could you display
on their
that?
globe mind retinas? Because yeah, it's flat, guys. Gonna have to deal with it. Just burn that image in there, so you never forget that it's flat and that we're right and you're a bunch of lunatics.
David Reed, serial killers of ballers.
All hail the son of a beach.
So this is a clip from this bit is the advert. This is a clip from just for the benefit of Sean Bloody Hufford, who thinks that I was claiming this. This is an extract from Jeronism's video, and it was reproduced on Deep Inside the Rabbit Holes channel, and it is entitled "The Only Flat Earth Proof That You Will Ever Need." And basically, this is, I think it's 175 miles. Can't remember exactly what the distance is. It isn't it right. So it's 175 miles, and basically there should be a geometric curve of 12,000 feet. But the mountain in the background is greater than 12,000 feet, so the whole mountain should be behind the curve by some degree. And
Mount Everest of curve.
yeah, there's meant to be a wall of water between us and the target, and we should not see this. Now,
where's the hump? Where's the hump?
That's the that is the
hump.
If there was a hump, it would be between us and it, and we would not see this. I think most people can't get their head around the fact that because we can see it, it's that means it's a ball. Now the point is that we see it, but we can't see it on a ball because this horizon, wherever it may be, is between us and it, but completely. That this is hidden behind the curve of the Earth, and it's 175 miles. Right now, he is at some elevation at the top of a mountain, or I think he's at some church somewhere. So I think he's got the.
It doesn't matter. The maths don't lie. The maths, if we live on a sphere, are
there's some issue over. There's some issue over the 1,000 feet. I don't know exactly what the issue is, but let's see it. Let's see why the 1,000 feet's wrong. The point is that how far out is it going to be? What do you want, another 1,000 feet on it? I don't really think. Bottom line is, this mountain is not supposed to be seen.
Well, yeah, they are going to throw out, like they've done with us from day one. They always wanted us to pinpoint our observer height, right? They were arguing over inches at some point, right? Even with your 1 foot observation, it was at 14 inches, not a foot. These guys need the parameters to fall within their ball Earth model. So they are going to deny that he was at 1,000 feet. Unless he can prove definitively that he was there, this is all they will say. They will say, no, he was higher than that. He's lying.
Yeah.
That's what they will say.
Only a reply to their confirmation bias.
Well, Arwen, the true scientific method, and ask Lewis Hackett this, right, is to try and constantly disprove every new theory, right? And that includes the one that you adhere to, because by trying to disprove it and failing it, it sort of bolsters it, right? You can move forward with a little more confidence every time. When you ask these clowns how they tried to disprove the globe Earth theory, they all come up lacking. Lewis Hackett said he didn't. So these are not true scientists. These are not out for truth. And as you say, they have to bring into their reckoning. They can't just wipe the slate clean, right? In terms of any, like your picture there.
They have to find it in their scripture. It's just like, oh, look, see, I read it in a book, so it must be right.
Yeah, they have to bring the globe
I
Earth.
can't trust what I see.
Because if we push them, Arwen, if we push them for why they bring a globe Earth into it in the first place, there's no proof for it. So again, it's an exercise in fantasy. The more we entertain these people and their notions.
The fairy tale.
Exactly.
A religion.
But I think there's a greater story as well. We're living in these times for a reason, and we are all much the wiser, and we are all coming towards our own truth in an accelerated rate, I think. I think there's a greater script going on here. This is the great game of life.
It's only the beginning.
Well, you know it,
This is
Arwen.
our field. Once we get more solid, we will start to see and be seen in the rest of what is there. Because deception is not just in the cosmogony, it is everywhere. It is in culture, in schooling, in politics, in business, in everything.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much to the 15 new subscribers that I've got through today's shows. That's just fantastic.
That's outrageous. 15. There's like
15,
200 people watching at one point.
Now.
To all be subscribed to Ranty, all 200 of you miserable sods. Get over to Ranty Flat
Yeah,
Earth.
and to me too, please.
And Arwen, yeah, definitely.
Yay!
So yeah, subscribe to Arwen and subscribe to Ranty Flat Earth for all your flat Earth needs.
And more.
And more.
You
Yes.
should have said that with a pair of gloves on. Marigolds for all your flat Earth needs.
Come to me for the theories, go to Ranty for the footage.
And come to the Rumpus for the explanation.
Oh God, no.
But here's another important thing I think we're learning as well: this reflective nature of water. I've long since incorporated that into my thinking, and it makes perfect sense. Like children, we must become, and this is the first time we can see the reflections in puddles. When we apply that to the sky as well, and the luminaries, great progress can be made again. And I mean, I do speak about Aristarchus, but I've said this before as well. If you think it's just the ravings of a madman, your own science, Rumpus's science tells him that Aristarchus is the most mysterious crater on the most mysterious object, which is the moon in our system, right? So this is a cause for, you know, a little bit of curiosity for us. And again, yeah, when we see that water has this reflective nature to it, and we think about, see, when we think about the Earth, right, as we come to flat Earth, we can't just say or build a picture in our brain of a flat and a stationary plane. That leaves us in the wilderness, in a sense, because we're out for truth. So we have to think of the confines as well. But in my thinking, there are waters beyond. When the barrier collapsed, we had an inundation and a changing face to the land. So if there are waters beyond, you have energies introduced there. Might we get some sort of reflection? Indeed, we do. Lucy in the sky with diamonds is a big clue for us as well. So when I talk about Aristarchus, it's, you know, in a deadly serious manner. And as I say, if we're considering flat Earth, let me just say this: a lot of people get stuck on that. You know, after this amount of time, they can say, "Well, I know there's no curvature detected or no movement detected." When you quiz them about the moon or the stars or whatever, they draw a blank. And as I say, I think you haven't progressed if you haven't moved beyond at a fundamental understanding in yourself, flat and stationary Earth, because that was handed to us on a plate. The rest of the stuff is there to be put together as well. So.
But there's still the exploration to do. What is the actual layout of the known Earth? Is there a border? Is there another non-linear spatial effect, like a loop? What is there? How are the star heavens beyond our known continents? Are they different? I've also talked about this in my last hangout, that there's a possibility that these star heavens, as we see them, even though they are rotating, that they relate directly to the land beneath, that the pattern of stars relate to the land beneath. So if that is the case, then if you move beyond the antiquators, North and the South Pole, and there is more different land beyond there, then there's a big chance that the half of the star globe that you get to see from that point on is different, entirely different, a totally unknown star heaven for a part, which, well, would be fascinating to witness and very, very difficult to explain on a globe.
I think we get to see it all someday, Arwen. I think within this sort of divided state we're in, there's a certain amount we can know, and we can't know beyond that. You know, I think in our true natures, and I know you agree with me in a big sense as well, this is all easy shit for us. You know, we are unified in a true sense. We're having an experience now. So like any sort of video game that you might play, there is a fixed script and a fixed narrative, a fixed pathway for you to make your way through. And I think we have to start thinking in terms of games of clues. There really are so many clues out there.
Indeed.
I mentioned the Orlando Ferguson map.
But also possibilities. We can model out very simply possibilities. What could be there? How could it be? This is what I love to work with. It's just like work with the possibilities. What could be out there? If it wasn't this, then what else could it be? What would be logical? What would make it still fit theoretically? And then just move from there on and just see what will be we be bumping into? How will the heavenly bodies be acting beyond the known zones? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But again, with this, we can sort of let's decide in a more fixed and solid way what the nature of our home is. I mean, in terms of if I was to zoom out The way I see it now, our Earth is in a bubble surrounded by waters beyond. I know it's crazy, but I mean, you have to. It's all about us recapturing our imagination and repainting our picture. Remember, this is our experience. This is our life. So yeah, there are clues there for us. I just talked about the Orlando Ferguson map.
You know what?
That is a massive clue for us. We can imagine the Earth being flat, and then it will encode the contour of the barrier. I think this is the idea. And even within the name, our land, though fear goes sun. So yeah, this is Stanley Kubrick was a major clue giver.
Right.
So yeah, we need to be Sherlock Holmes. That's what we need to be, actually.
Indeed.
And when you do, you'll see lots of clues strewn from you in pretty much every media, every form of media.
Indeed.
You're up, Ranty.
Oh, right. No, I was just leaving this up for a time. So if you want to present it, it's essentially the work that we've been doing the last few months, and what we're coming to this conclusion that this is essentially the curve calculator, but from a perspective and flat Earth point of view.
Yeah, the only problem is it's not considering the optical slant where everything appears to move up towards the horizon.
Yeah, we haven't got to that yet.
Little steps.
Little steps.
The narrow viewing angle does describe pretty well the zone where the distortions, the optical distortions, are basically. So that you got that part correct. And as things move further away, as their angular size changes, more of the object in that distance will basically get into that distortion zone and have distortions being applied to it, like miraging, displacement, and compacting, and all of that kind of stuff, and obstruction from things in front of it, like waves. So you got that part right, definitely. Nathan?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why you're zooming in. Yeah, I could show another picture that I presented it a couple of times before. Hold on. I lost the hangout. Where is it? Right there. It is not an orthographic view. It is a perspective representation. And in this picture, what you see is what your eye actually gets to see, and how the observer has a field of view that at some point just cannot narrow down any further. And from there on, there is just a compacted view, and everything is basically visible directly in front of each other. There is no more angle change because it can't reduce any further. It is just within that zone, and that zone is the same yellow stripe in your picture pretty much. And things, despite they get smaller due to perspective into the distance, but they do become distorted, and that zone of distortion becomes bigger and bigger and bigger in relation to the object getting smaller and smaller because of their angular size reducing. And where the compacted view starts, that is pretty much where the optical slant starts, because there the things that stop going upwards towards the horizon, they start to obscure things directly behind it. And I think that is what causes the apparent horizon, and that is what causes the obstruction part of lower parts being just completely invisible, like of the windmills and all of that. So that is how I describe it.
One eye only, Illuminati confirmed. Just kidding.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Where do you think I got all this information? Just kidding.
I mean, I was saying today to Nathan that I didn't think there was much more I could do in this location, filming wise, because I've pretty much been up and down the coast and spent the last 2.5 months documenting this stuff. But Nathan thinks I should persevere with it, really.
Well, it's the same principle as Anthony over at the Isle of Man. When he keeps going back, you find yourself discovering new things by just trying to, achieve what you'd achieved before slightly differently. Or better, and then you find you discover something completely new and unexpected just by looking. And looking at something that you know well means that you'll do it better the second time anyway. And by the time you do it the second time around, there's a good chance that A, there'll be a new audience. Like and subscribe and share, by the way. There'll be a different bunch of people that are listening, and they may never have heard this argument. They may not know. They may have come across exactly the same thing. They'll have a calculator put in front of them that says Earth curve calculator. A, they won't realise that means you're immediately begging the question and assuming you're on a sphere, and every outcome from that calculator will always say it's a globe, no matter how close or far it can be slightly manipulated mathematically. Most people won't recognise the presupposition, but when they actually get into the maths, if they are that far into it, begging the question that is, they'll realise very quickly that it's omitting perspective. Or they won't realise, they won't realise at all that the calculator omits perspective. So, hopefully by pointing some of these things out a few more times with slight variations, if it's identical but clearer, all the better, as far as I'm concerned, because you will find new things. You've stumbled upon this by going down and then going, wow, look at this, look at how it's working, I can see the effects, and then compiling it this morning, with me watching, and you go, that's excellent, but you could have given up. If you were less tenacious, you'd have given up already and said, I've already got this, Barrow's done.
Yeah, I probably agree. I think it's the ballers that drove us forward, though. I mean, their attacks on me made me more determined to go ahead and do more observations and shut them up. If they hadn't been so... Sorry?
No, I was going to say exactly, and with each new arrival, as Nathan was talking about in terms of an audience member, you'll have the same ballers presenting the same difficulties, presenting the same objections, the same ridicule, if you will, which in one sense, in a positive sense, like you just admitted, serves to drive you forward, and be more determined, I guess, in your search in terms of collating evidence and ultimate truth.
What a stubborn guy you are, Ranty. You keep going and going back for more, and I thank you for that.
It's also the attacks and the ad homs and the name calling and the muck spreading, and you see it all in the chat, and it's probably maybe only 10 or 12 people that are doing this. And I think they do that to try and intimidate people to not go forward with their investigations, whether they're paid shills or they're just indoctrinated beyond belief, or just nasty people. But whichever there's no need for it in the debate, and there's no need for it in the chat either. I mean, these people need to grow up and realize we're having an adult conversation here, and we're doing this off our own back with our own resources. We're not being backed by anybody. All this rubbish about there's money in flat earth, it's completely wrong. This is just, we're doing it to find out where we live, and we would appreciate it if these trolls would just be a little more respectful.
Yeah,
if they don't believe us, just go somewhere else. They don't have to be in the chat. Just go somewhere else.
Be sure to hit the super chat. And with that, I'll say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, you know exactly what to do. But if you liked the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you've not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!